Yo, what is good, YouTube? Welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, we're going to be ranking the top shooting guards in NBA 2K24 MyTEAM here on this tier list. I got about 40 of the best shooting guards in MyTEAM on this list. If there's anybody I left off the list you'd like to hear my thoughts on, feel free to leave a comment. I'll try to get back to you and let you know where I'd rank the card. But with that being said, before we hop into it, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 30,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I upload every single day, tons of consistent daily MyTEAM content. Would really appreciate it if y'all do subscribe. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. So we have ourselves 100 overall Kevin Durant as the first shooting guard on this list, and 100 overall KD is obviously a very, very good card. The problem with 100 overall KD is, despite being one of the better shooting guards in the game, his release is not truly top tier. So I would say like back of A tier is probably the most deserving spot for KD, because everything else about the card, size, SIGs, all that type of stuff is phenomenal, but the jumper itself is not as elite, which isn't to say that he's a bad card by any means, because he's certainly not. He's just not game-breakingly exceptional. I feel like putting him in the A tier feels like the fairest spot for KD. Now, Ricky Davis is elite, but there's a bunch of elite shooting guards, and I don't know if he's quite S tier, although he's right on that borderline for me. Definitely one of the better shooting guards in the game for sure. I'm not certain if I should put him. I think I'm putting him S, because I didn't include some of the giants, like the shooting guard Yao, shooting guard Giannis, shooting guard Wemby. I just don't want to include them on every single list, so I just decided not to include the out of position versions on this list. No shooting guard Dirk, no shooting guard Shaq. None of those guys got their cards on this list, just because I didn't really want to include them on this. So that is okay, though. Everybody else who was a shooting guard who's good should be on the list. I think with that being the case, though, that makes Ricky Davis an S tier shooting guard. Now, I'm putting DeMar in D tier. I don't care that he's an invincible. I think his release is bad. I think his SIGs are bad. I just don't think he's a very good card. And that's not me saying that he's the worst card in the world or that he's unusable or anything like that, because that's not what I'm saying. I don't think he's very good, but I don't think he's the worst card in the world or anything along those lines whatsoever. I just think he could be better, realistically. And he's not quite as elite as I personally would like him to be. That's all I'm really saying. I just think at this point in the year, when you were looking at the best of the best cards in the game, he's probably one of the worst cards in this list. Not the worst, but one of the worst. And maybe that's a C tier card instead of a D tier. I'm not totally sure, but if that's the case, we'll wind up adjusting him up if need be. Ron Holland, great release, versatile shooting guard. SIGs could be a little better. If I was looking for anything to critique, that's what it would be. I'm not saying he's a bad card, because he's certainly not. He's just not unbelievably like the best card in the game or anything like that, but that's okay. I think he's release is super good. He's 6'8", he's got versatile ability, and he's a solid dribbler as well, even if the SIGs could maybe be slightly better, but I think B tier is probably fair. Rick Barry, I like the card. I think B tier is fair for him as well. Definitely one of the better non-gambling shooting guards in my team. Not the best or anything like that, but release is good, super solid SIGs, complete stats and badges. Definitely a great card, no doubt about that whatsoever. Next, Paul Pierce is an obvious D tier. I don't think there's any arguing that one. Really bad release. I mean, Paul Pierce has not been good in 2K for a few years, but this year he certainly still isn't, is what I will say. I don't think he's the worst, but I certainly don't think he's anything close to the best or anything along those lines. Like, not an awful card, but also not a top tier option at this point in the game. When you compare him to the best of the best cards, he's pretty awful because of his release being as much of a struggle as it is. RJ Barrett, I'll give him a step above D tier just because I do like his release and he's got semi-decent SIGs, but I still think he can't go any higher than C tier at this point. It's just a really stacked list, and he's got to go C tier. Steve Smith goes S tier. That one is kind of a no-brainer to me. I think this Steve Smith card is awesome. I think he's really complete. I think he's a great versatile defender. Honestly, 6'8" with a very nice release. KCP base is a great jumper. I just think as a whole, he's a really good card who does everything pretty much well. There's nothing he does poorly right now on the court at the shooting guard position, and he gives you elite level size to boot. Really good card. Steven Jackson, one of the better dark matters in the game. Almost honestly could be argued A tier. There's just so many good shooting guards that I think I'm going to go B with him. But really good card who does everything, again, very well, and is just an elite level option at the shooting guard position who can kind of do anything that you need a shooting guard to do, at least at a solid level. He may not be unbelievably great in any specific area, although I would say his release is really nice, but he's got good size. He's a versatile defender. He's just just a capable, all-around, well-rounded card. Justin Edwards, really good release, really nice left-handed release, but everything else about the card when it comes to his SIGs, leave a teeny bit to be desired at this point. I mean, Steph Escape's just not that incredible. Behind the back is not an unbelievable behind the back either, but his jumper's awesome. He's got Pro 2 fade. I mean, he's a good card for sure. Again, I just think B tier is probably fair. Jaylen Brown's release stinks. Everything else with the card is pretty good, but his behind the back also isn't that great, and his release kind of stinks. I honestly want to put him in the D tier as well, but I'm looking at this list and I'm like, you look at the list, there's a couple guys left that jump out at me as probably worse than Jaylen Brown, but yeah, is there enough guys who are worse than him to not put him in D tier? I don't think so. I think I'm going D tier with Jaylen Brown as well. As crazy as that might sound, he's 100 overall, but he's not a good one. Kyle Korver, awesome shooter, not much else at this point in the year. Good defender as well, I guess, but no half removal enforcer. SIGs definitely leave something to be desired. I think competitive, I would take all the guys in B tier above him competitively, probably. As much as I do think, I mean, he's basically just Curry Slide with an elite release. That's pretty much what he is in terms of movement and versatility and ability. And that's not me saying he's a bad card, because he's not. He's just not an incredible card. There are definitely better cards than Kyle Korver at this point. I think putting him C feels a step low, but I also think it's probably right. Amani Bates, one of the best shooting guards in the game. I would say top 6 or so on this list, probably 6-8. Great release, versatility, can put the ball on the floor, perfect SIGs pretty much. Just an awesome card who gives you a great release to boot. Really like him a lot. Chris Middleton's release isn't good enough. His stats and badges are pretty good. Trey fade is nice, but as a whole, it's just not enough at this point in the year for him to overcome a release that isn't great. And I think, again, that's kind of the thing that has put every single card in D tier so far, is that I just don't like their release much at all. And I think that's pretty important. Rudy Gay, I'm going S tier with him as well. Massive player build, really good defender. Also, obviously, awesome release and great SIGs. Like, very complete card, not missing much at all in terms of really anything of importance. And I think, again, probably S tier would be fair. Chris Mullin, release could be maybe slightly better. It's not terrible, and yes, he's an invincible, but his animations are not quite as exceptional as you'd like. I think probably putting him C tier is definitely the fairest slot for him. John Havlicek is a bit small, but jumper's awesome, and SIGs are pretty good. Like, a good card for sure. I just think on a list like this, again, at this point, you can't put him super duper high, despite the fact I do like his animations a lot. Kawhi Leonard will probably go A tier. Just invincible Kawhi is really good, but is he actually better noticeably than a Rob Dilling, or sorry, not than a Ron Holland? Like, his release isn't unbelievably great. Everything else is really good, obviously. He's got perfect SIGs and perfect stats and badges, which is awesome, but I do wish his release was maybe slightly better. As much as I like Kawhi, I think Invincible Kawhi does go A tier, but he's almost B tier to me. Like, it's close, because his release could be a little better. Carmelo's going to go B tier. Again, I like the card, but again, I don't think he's quite top tier. Maybe I'm just really nitpicky at this point in the year, but there's still a bunch of good shooting guards left to get to, and I just don't think I would take Carmelo over most of them. So putting him B tier is probably fair. Michael Red's release could be a lot better. He's an invincible, but honestly, just like Chris Mullin, in need of a better release as a whole. And while the stats and badges are great, I don't think as a whole the card is truly elite enough to be higher than the C tier. Ray Allen is also, well, actually Ray Allen's going to go D tier, because his release is not as fast as it should be. It's just not. This is Ray Allen, one of the greatest shooters of all time. He should have a faster, smoother, better release than he has. It's not an awful release, but it's certainly not top tier. And yes, the SIGs are pretty good. Yes, the stats and badges are good, but he's only 6'5". Like, he's not unbelievably great. I think probably D tier is probably the fairest spot for him too. Next, we got Adam Morrison. I think I'm putting Adam Morrison B tier. If his upper was better, he'd be A tier for sure. I really do like the card. I think I was very impressed with him when I did gameplay with him, but I just think as a whole, again, if you have a flaw in your jump shot at this point in the year, it's hard to put you in the top tier. And that's not to say he's a bad card at all, because he's not. He's just not best of the best at this point in the year at the shooting guard position. So I think B tier is probably fair for him. Cody Williams, I like him as much, if not better, than Amani Bates. I will say, though, I'm looking at this list, and there's still a few guys that I think do deserve to be S tier, so it's going to be really tough, I think, when it gets down to ranking these cards. Cody Williams is my favorite of all the next shooting guards, though. He is an awesome card with a great release, who's 6'8", perfect SIGs. Again, kind of like all these guys in the S tier so far. They're pretty darn similar. All of them pretty much do the same thing. 100 overall T-Mac, very good, but low A. I mean, I think low A is probably the fairest slot for him. You know what I mean? his upper could use a little work. His base is obviously awesome. His SIGs and stats and badges are perfect. He's 6'8", really good card, but still I think probably A tier is the fairest slot for him right now. Brandon Ingram's definitely D tier. Bad jump shot definitely fits in with the theme of the D tier for the most part, as just not having enough offensive capability with his jumper to really be an exceptionally top tier option. Matus Buzelos goes A tier, not quite S tier, because I think maybe the animations could be just incrementally better, but he's 6'10" with a money release, and he's really, really good. Definitely could at least be argued in the S tier if you wanted to, but really, really nice card. I think A tier, still certainly not an insult. Dr. J, awesome jumper. He's like a worse Rudy Gay. I think he's really good. I think he's a little slept on at this point in the year because he's got basically perfect SIGs as well. I think he's a dog. I think offensively he's amazing. Yes, he only has golden movable enforcer. I don't think that's that big of a deal. He's got a big player build and he plays awesomely well on both ends of the court. I think A tier is fair. Scottie Pippen, some of the worst SIGs of anybody in the B tier, but awesome release, awesome defender, a lot of size, just unfortunately not elite enough as an overall card at this point in the year to be any higher than B tier because his SIGs are so lacking, and they really are. They're very lacking. His SIGs could be a lot better, and if they were a lot better, he'd be an A, arguably even S tier option, but right now, that's just not the case, and it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. Next, we have Grant Hill. Grant Hill's not going to go S tier for me, but he's going to go A. 6'8", perfect SIGs, super solid release. Great card. Still A tier, not S, because I think the release could be a little better, and the S tier has to be pretty small. Richard Jefferson, perfect SIGs, invincible, awesome card. Kind of like Grant Hill. Jumper is not insane. Yes, they changed Richard's release, but his upper is still a little bit teensy bit slow, and it does slow down his jumper slightly. I still think he's an awesome card, but back of A is probably the fairest slot for him. Jason Tatum is a worse 100 overall Scottie Pippen. High C feels like the fairest slot for him, to be honest. And I think putting him there is probably the best spot for him. Ron Artest, can he go S? I don't think so. I think he's worse than all the guys in S tier. He's really good too. This A tier is full of elite level cards, but I still think Ron Artest is probably not quite S tier to me. Jerry Stackhouse, nice release, decent size, good SIGs, solid 100 overall card. Not a bad option at all. I think putting him B tier is probably totally fair. He's a little bit slept on compared to most of the other 100 overalls in the game, but he's definitely a good card. Would put him B tier for sure. Jaime Jaquez, good card. Release could use a teensy bit of work. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he's best of the best either. Like high C, low B probably is the fairest slot for Jaime Jaquez. Well, actually, while I'm at it, let's just real quickly look at his SIGs just a little bit more for a refresher, because let's just make sure I'm right about all this. Kyrie dribble style, Trey escape. I guess they did upgrade his SIGs and they gave him Pro 2 fade too. Off handles for days as well. I mean, he probably goes B realistically. I think we got to go B tier for Jaime Jaquez. He's a good card. They gave him everything you could ask for. Vince Carter, I don't care that he's an invincible. He's going C tier. His SIGs are super mediocre. His jumper is nice, but well, he's not. No, he's B tier. I like the card enough to put him B tier. I wouldn't put him any higher than that, but I think B tier is probably, like low B is probably fair. If I have Scottie Pippen in B tier and Jaime Jaquez in B tier, got to put Invincible Vince in B tier as well. 6'9", Terrence Manbase. Michael Beasley is like right on that borderline as well. Is he S tier? Is he A tier? I just think I'm kind of happy to have only 6 A tier guys looking at this list from now on. I think he doesn't feel differentiatingly special compared to the other guys in A tier. And I just think his release is a little bit inconsistent. That's my biggest critique with the card, is that his jumper just can be a bit inconsistent. Klay Thompson's jumper also can be a bit inconsistent. His SIGs are good, but I just think I don't love 100 overall Klay. He's one of my least favorite 100 overalls. He's not bad. He's just not insane. And again, putting him C probably feels fair. I'll say that I'm going to move Jaime Jaquez back down though, because Klay, Korver, Jaime Jaquez all feel like they're pretty similar level. So I think putting them all C tier feels fair. Obviously, Glenn Rice is the best shooting guard in the game, and it's not even close. He's a duh S tier. That's, I mean, very much a duh S tier. Really, really good card. Feel like it's pretty much a no-brainer. And it actually, in order for evenness, but also for, I think, accuracy, I'm going to move Scottie Pippen down a tier. I'm going to move Tracy McGrady because of his upper down a tier, and I'm going to put Paul George in the back of the A tier. Big player build, perfect SIGs, nice release, super solid card, and I think a little bit, again, slept on at this point in the year compared to the other dark matter shooting guards. I think for the fairness and evenness of this list, this is perfect as well. 6 S tiers, 6 D tiers, and then a perfect amount, I think 9 A tiers, B tiers, and C tiers. So pretty nice, well-rounded lineup for sure, or tier list, I should say, for sure on this video. So with that being said, I do hope y'all do enjoy the video. If so, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.